Hi, everyone. Welcome. Folks are coming in to the virtual opening event for B. Nettles Harvest of Memory. We'll get started here in just a little bit. We'll let folks continue coming in.
Oh, God, I'm in the background of you. Is that okay?
It's all right, yeah.
I was fortunate to get over and see the exhibit at the museum today.
Excellent.
They close at midnight.
Well, 7 p.m., but yes.
7 p.m. And then I guess with the governors, yeah. Chris told me midnight, but you're right, 7.
Amy, I'm seeing people. This is exciting. Was I supposed to?
Yes.
I see Roy.
It's a party.
Hi there. How are you?
See you, B.
Hey, how great to see you. Oh, what time is it in Liverpool?
It's just gone 10 o'clock, I think.
10 o'clock.
It's 10 o'clock, exactly, yes.
Oh,
And in the background is my partner, Deirdre. You can just about see it in the background.
Hi.
Hi.
Yay. Okay.
I'm just amazed at the photograph that's up on the screen. I can just
Yeah,
about...
that's Roy, guys, behind the girl shooting the birds.
Yes.
That's
Right
Roy
in the
with the
middle there.
curly, with the curly
Keeping it
hair. You still got the curly hair.
Oh, just about, yeah. Just
Right
about.
there.
Yeah.
That's Roy. That's me. So this was taken my second year and your first year.
Yes. So was this 1970 or 1969?
I'd say it would be 70 because I believe
70.
we took it for the student show. I think.
Yeah, that's
that
right.
was going to be our, kind of cool poster.
Yeah.
And you never gave me those negatives back, Roy.
Well, I don't have them.
I don't either. I don't know what happened.
No, I don't know what happened to them at all.
Okay, look, we'll blame it on somebody else.
I think we can.
All I
yes.
have here were I had the proof sheet. Thus, the
well, that's true.
heavily look. I photographed this shot from a proof sheet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We've got about 70 folks in and more people coming. So hello, everyone. Good afternoon here in Champaign-Urbana and welcome. I'm Amy Powell. I'm curator of modern and contemporary art here at Krannert Art Museum. A few logistics at the very beginning. Live captioning is available for this event. You can click at the bottom of your Zoom screen on closed captioning to access that feature. We are recording this event. Recording is happening right now for the exhibition archive and also for our sort of digitally distant, physically distant reality at this moment. So we are recording. We are going to go through a series of presentations and comments, and then at the end we'll open the floor to discussion, and I'll give more instructions then as we go, but that's sort of how we're managing the event. So we're both imagining an opening party, which is why I thought Bee's image that she gave from her cohort, this would have been, what did you just say, Bee? This would have been 1969.
Spring of 70.
Spring of 70,
yeah.
So the graduation semester for you.
Yeah.
So even though we're virtual and here on Zoom, we might imagine that one of us produces an umbrella to balance the photograph. We might also imagine that everyone is welcome, babies included. I just really love this image. But so that's a little bit about logistics. To open the event, as we do here at Krannert Art Museum, and I invite you to also know and acknowledge the native presences on the lands wherever you are. Krannert Art Museum, as part of the University of Illinois, stands on the lands of the Peoria, Kaskaskia, Piankashaw, Wea, Miami, Mascoutin, Odawa, Sauk, Meskwaki, Kickapoo, Potawatomi, Ojibwe, and Chickasaw nations. These lands were the traditional territory of these indigenous nations prior to their forced removal, and they continue to carry the stories of these nations and their struggles for survival and identity today. As part of a land-grant institution dedicated to promoting the critical power of art of the past and present, Krannert Art Museum has a responsibility to acknowledge the peoples of these lands as well as the histories of dispossession that have allowed for the growth of this university over the last 150 years. We also recognize the particular role that images have played in this history. Using our collections, programming, and collaborative relationships, we seek to address and reflect on these histories and the role that the University of Illinois continues to play in shaping them. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I want to begin by thanking my colleagues here at Krannert Art Museum for planning, installing, opening B. Nettles Harvest of Memory. We open November 5th, we close March 6th. Today at 7 p.m. Is a good time to see the show if you're local and want to come on over after the event. As a lot of folks know, we are closing due to statewide mandates starting tomorrow, and we will eagerly await reopening so that so many more people can see the exhibition. So it's a tremendous time to be working right now, and my colleagues, especially the installation team here, and also Liza Sylvester, our curator of academic programs, Julia Kelly, our assistant director for marketing, are just tremendous colleagues to have right now. So thank you very much. I also thank all of my invited guests today for joining us, and to the Rare Book and Manuscript Library, and to the Student Cultural Programming Fee, and to the Roseanne Galvin Knoll Fund for supporting this exhibition. And so I've already sort of invoked this picture as our opening imagination, not just to go back in history, but maybe for our group tonight, and what kind of dynamic we might surface around Bee's work. I'm thrilled to be talking about Bee's work at any time, but also because now an emphasis on imagination and on making new worlds feels so much more present now, and to even during COVID, and to sort of come to her work and reflect, but also take inspiration on production and on making and on imagination and what's possible. So I thought I'm going to introduce Bee's work a little bit. I'm going to read the first paragraph of my essay for the catalog, which the curators so generously invited. I'm going to show you a few installation views from here at Krannert Art Museum, and then invite the curators to be in conversation with me just for a few minutes about this work as we move forward. So there are many ways into Bee's work. For me, this was mine. So this is my opening paragraph in the exhibition catalog. Published by the University of Texas Press. It's beautiful, so if you don't have it, you must. Bee Nettles' Urbana home is enveloped in a collage of earthly and found materials, vegetables on vines covered with netting, brightly colored glass and ceramic shards embedded in stone walkways, and green plants so robust that they allow for an annual digging party where neighbors and friends can remove plantings for their gardens. On one visit, I glimpsed a fern with leaves spray painted in gold. This seems a perfect picture, a successful image that reflects the sunlight just so, but also an indication of Nettles' commitment to world making. Her constant curiosity and fearlessness toward her medium is always grounded in gestures of hospitality and transformation. And so I show here two of Bee's early fabric works that she made here while a student, The Skirted Garden and Imaginary Prairie, both of which are in the collection at Krannert Art Museum. And here you can see them installed in the exhibition. So when you are able to come see the show, if you haven't already, this is the sort of the opening room. I really, Jamie and Olivia discerned three themes to the exhibition, and one of which is landscape and nature, and how themes of landscape and nature have both influenced Bee and how she's portraying them. And The Skirted Garden, not only the circumstances of its production, what it looks like, how it functions, but I just wanted that to be front and center. So this is what you'll see right when you walk in.
Lovely.
We also, the other themes of the exhibition are family and motherhood and self-portraiture and myth-making. So how Bee has imagined herself and really made various personas connecting with mythology and long histories of representations of women. So this is actually, there's no one pathway through the exhibition. If you go through in the way I imagined, this might be the last room you encounter of self-portraiture and mythology. So nearly all of Mountain Dream Tarot deck is on view here, on loan from the George Eastman Museum. We also have one of Bee's cabinets that we brought from her house. Here that you can see on a platform, and various photographs that she's taken inside of it are also on view in the exhibition. Another view from self-portraiture and mythology. And so we'll talk about artwork in and out tonight. If you want to hear a more formal conversation and walk through the exhibition, come back in late January and join us, January 28th, we will be doing that. But I wanted to invite the curators of the exhibition who are here with us tonight. Olivia Las Gonzalez, who's former director at the Sheldon Art Galleries in St. Louis, that was the first venue for the exhibition. And Jamie Allen, who is the Stephen B. and Janice G. Ashley Associate Curator in the Department of Photography at the George Eastman Museum. Both Olivia and Jamie are here tonight. And so I'd love to just have you say hello and tell us a little bit about how you came to work with Bee and sort of envision this entire project.
Hi, thank you so much for having us and for hosting the show. And I'm excited to sometime be able to see it in person. It looks beautiful from your photographs. We're very excited to have it there on Bee's home turf for everyone to see her wonderful works of art. Jamie and I, well, the exhibit really started off with an idea. I've known about Bee's work for many years. I'm from Chicago originally, so Bee was, a bit of a legend even back in my grad school days. And so I was always aware of her work and happened to be thinking through what some future exhibits would be, and Bee's name really rose to the surface. And I reached out to a colleague in town who had hosted a show by Bee, Terry Surrey at Gallery 210. And he very graciously put me in touch with Bee, and we started a conversation. Bee was very generous with her time and her thoughts, and also actually was the one who paired me up with Jamie at the George Eastman Museum. And so Jamie and I began a conversation and decided to collaborate. It's always better to collaborate. And so we ended up with this wonderful exhibit. So very excited to have been able to be a part of that. Jamie, do you have some thoughts yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I feel like Bee put us together, and also Amy was in the mix at that time. And as we started talking about ideas and talking about a possible book and collaboration, it all just sort of fell together to have these three venues and each of us to write an essay for the book. And Bee's just been so gracious with herself and her stories and her work, and sharing that with all of us to be able to bring all this together.
Something I really love about how you organize the exhibition is that there's so many ways through the work. And, for instance, chronology might be one way through. What I love about this show, and those of you who've seen it will know that it's organized thematically, as I've mentioned, and then roughly chronologically within those themes. But the installation at each venue has really allowed for a cross sampling of Bee's work, so that photographs that come from the same series, Turning 50 or Life's Lessons, definitely return trips, aren't all installed together, but they're all throughout the galleries, so that there's a constant kind of return, which is that works very well for Bee's work because she's reusing negatives, returning to different themes in the work. And I brought some examples here where artworks from different chronologies are installed together so that we can see thematic, formal, conceptual linkages between them. In this example, it's 2 photographs from return trips here on the left. One of them is dance, and the other one is
Bird bath.
You'll say B, yeah, bird bath. And in the middle is Seaside Portrait from 1977. That's 3 photographs on photo linen that are stitched together. And then on the right side of the image is Hansel and Gretel from 1986, Life's Lessons. And so these 3 instances are, you know, combine attention to landscape, attention to family, but also a kind of triad, how are images stitched together, both digitally, physically, and how color and theme play out through the work. There's one of my other favorite instances in the installation here, one of the really powerful moves, I think, on Jamie and Olivia's part too, was to include a number of works from Turning 50 in the self-portraiture and mythology section, so that, you know, all that Bee has endured comes into sort of physically and in aging in her work comes in to this section. So one of my favorites is Stairway from 1997 here is at the top left. That's in the George Eastman Museum's collection. Just below it is Pincushion from 1995. That's in the Illinois State Museum's collection, and I'm naming these collections because folks are here and where the collections come from really matter, right? Because we are also, that's another way that the artist community plays out. But these are juxtaposed with the Kool-Aid Heart, which would have been full of Kool-Aid in 1971 and 1972 and also bursting. And, you know, the traces of that are there. So all of these really nice kinds of alignments happen across time, which is possible because of how you've organized the exhibition thematically.
Yeah, I feel like it was important to approach it in a different way. As Olivia and I were talking, that, you know, a chronology, it fits for the book because you can actually go through Bee as she progresses in her work. Feels very weird to talk about you, Bee, while you're just standing, like I said, standing there, sitting there.
It's me yakking away. So.
But it's like, as a chronology, you can go directly through the work. And a lot of exhibitions, it makes sense that way. But I love that Bee revisits themes and that in each body of work you see these through lines that happen. Mm-hmm. So it just made so much sense to kind of pull those out and tease them apart. And one of the things I love about the self-portraiture is that as an individual you can approach it and bring your own story to it. So you know, something that's about aging is a piece that you can relate to no matter who you are. And then when you also get the piece that's about a self-portrait and that's about an experience that Bee had, it hits you at a different level. So I like that Bee's work just is multifaceted in that way.
Bee, I would ask you too, what's been your experience walking through the exhibition and all of the venues, especially with what we're talking about, this sort of thematic arrangement, because it is a trip back in time and, you know, to the present, but there's also all of these different connections to make and things to learn, right?
That's right. It was really enjoyable having other people make all these decisions for me. And I sort of sat back and let you go at it. And you didn't let me get away with much. Occasionally, I don't know if you have an example, but I would use the same negative over and over. And even if it was like 15 years apart in a body of work, you'd nail it. It was like, oh, you used that before. And I think the one with the crown of the mirror, I don't know if that's in the slide thing, but there's a case where it was like 30 years difference, and I'd use the same negative again. So that was interesting for me to see how astute and observant everybody was. This last show I've had even though it's been very brief, and I really hope it opens again, I've had a little more time to actually look at what you did, what all of you did. There were things that I commented, I think, to Amy about, and she said, oh, that's the way it was in Rochester. These two were paired. It was so busy in Rochester. It was wonderful, but there were, at the opening night, there were a couple hundred people, right, Jamie? I mean, it was a mob scene, which was good, but it meant, of course, just like most openings, you don't see anything but people. So I thought I would go back. I was fully expecting to go back in May and take more time and see it again and read the text labels. I never got to play the tarot game that you did. You know, I thought I would do that later. Just didn't happen. And the same with St. Louis. I mean, that was a fairly busy, short visit. So each show has had its own personality, but this one I had the calmer moments to actually spend time with the way the thinking was in terms of putting, oh, you found it. There it is. You're showing the one of the two crowns, but they're just blurred faces of me with a little bit of a mirror kind of creating horns over my head. And one is in Return Trips, and one was probably from the 70s, I think. 70s and almost 2000, 30 years apart.
And all of these connections are really reinforced by the architecture of the space. We just renovated these galleries. And so when you walk around, you'll be like, for instance, here you can see Bee's self-portrait holding the bowl there just through, which effectively in the space is kind of in another room, but you've got all these great sight lines walking around. So the architecture of the space reinforces these connections over time and just really moves you through. And Bee's books are well incorporated throughout as well in each theme. So thank you both, Olivia and Jamie, for joining us tonight and just for your great work. I'm gonna go back to our party image here and see if Alan Meddy is here. Alan is the director of the School of Art and Design here at the University of Illinois. Alan, are you here?
I am.
Great, welcome.
Hey, Alan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Bee.
Hi.
It's my great pleasure to be here. I'm going to be a little formal and state that on behalf of the students, alumni, faculty, and staff in the School of Art and Design, we congratulate Bee on this major retrospective exhibition, Harvest of Memory, that presents work from over a 50-year span. The school honors Bee as both Professor Emerita, serving the school from 1984 to 2008, and alumna, receiving her MFA in 1970. We thank Bee for her many years as a generous colleague in the school and for her leadership as chair of the photography program. Her endless energy and care for the photography program and its students was greatly appreciated and respected by her colleagues from all of our disciplines in the school. As a revered faculty member, she was known as a community builder who fostered interdisciplinary activities throughout the school that focused on photography, printmaking, and book arts. Over the years, she coordinated an impressive group of visiting artists that generously shared their work with our students and opened eyes to new opportunities utilizing the photograph. Her expectations and standards for her students and colleagues were always high, and it's difficult to believe that it has been 12 years since her retirement. I should add that she was a great mentor to me and many other young colleagues at the time, and we greatly appreciated her generosity and the time she gave us. In 2010, the School of Art and Design established a Distinguished Alumni Award to honor alumni for their accomplishments to their field and to their professional community. The faculty in the school nominate and select the recipients for this honor. In spring 2020, Bee was designated as the recipient of the 2020 Distinguished Alumni Award. It was our intention to present this award in September 2020 in conjunction with this exhibition. We had planned for a Distinguished Alumni Lecture, award presentation, and reception. Obviously, due to the pandemic, we have postponed the celebration until we can gather again in person. And in conversation with Bee, this is something we decided that we weren't going to do virtual, but we are hopeful for a time during the 21-22 academic year where we will be able to bring everybody together and have this, major lecture by Bee, as well as a reception, and formally give her this award. So we will keep everyone informed well in advance of the new date. So congratulations, Bee.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alan. And I had forgotten too that I had a couple of different party images. I scrolled to the second one, which looks like it was made on the same day.
Oh yeah, the whole roll was shot at one time.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that that's me in the middle there. How times have changed.
Hairstyles too. Although I've been growing mine to try to match what it used to look like.
Congratulations, Bee, on Distinguished Alumni Award. It's
Thank
really
you. I really do hope with that as a good excuse, everyone who could have come to this opening, which was originally going to be in August and then got postponed because of all this, can come back, and we'll have a party then.
Yeah, a party in person then.
Yeah.
With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, everyone, and I'm going to, hi, there's the grid, great. I'm going to invite a few more guests before we open the floor. Emily Matthews is with us. So Emily is head of Ricker Library of Architecture and Art, yet another tremendous colleague here on campus. Part of our goal tonight was to show the exhibition, preview it if you haven't been able to see it yet, but also really emphasize the impact and resources that Bee has had on our campus and continues to have. So, so I'll turn it over to Emily Matthews.
Hey everyone, I'm going to share my screen. And in the meanwhile, I just want to thank Bee for being such a great colleague. I've only been here for a year, and she has single-handedly really done a lot to make me feel welcome. And speaking of Alan's discussion of Bee as a community builder, I could tell right away that she had so much care for both the people who make up this community, but also the organizations that keep the arts and culture strong here. So without further ado, I just wanted to go over Ricker Library's exhibition guide that we put together, kind of highlighting some of the resources that we thought would be useful for all of you as just exploring more about Bee's work, and then some kind of themes from the show itself. And this is something that my predecessor started, and I thought was just such a great idea. So here we have just a little bit of an introduction, some work by and about Bee, including her website. And then we also spent some time creating some short videos of artist books in our collections, so that you could kind of get a sense of what these things are like to interact with. However, I will say one of the great things about being a librarian collecting artist books is oftentimes you can find these for sale, and as far as artwork is concerned, this is really an affordable way to collect art. And so I would just direct you to Nettle's website, where she has lots of these things for sale for very affordable prices. And also just, we've created some videos just to give you a sense of what these things might be like to interact with, but there's so much more to them, the materiality, and just so many ways that they make you super curious. So before I go into looking at a quick video, I just wanted to show that we also have some resources that we gathered also along the lines of the show: family and motherhood, nature and landscape, self-portraiture and mythology, assembling kind of these secondary sources for you to kind of explore ways that other artists have used themes of self-portraiture, other ways that artists have incorporated nature and landscape into their work, so that you can get a fuller sense of what makes Bee's contribution to artists taking on landscape as a kind of core aspect of the a driving force of their work and what makes it really unique and distinctive among all the artists who have contributed work. So without further ado, Amy asked me to show a video of Seasonal Turns, which I understand is a part of the show, but one of the nice things about the video versus showing something kind of in a display case is that we can actually see multiple views of the book. I will say that just drives me crazy as someone who exhibits books in cases. You know, you only get to stick with one view versus a video gives you multiple different views. And so this is one video that I want to shout out to our library specialist, Elizabeth Paulus, who's been creating some videos of our collection. Seasonal Turns, obviously one thinks of the 4 seasons. This series of artist books has 4 accordion style books that are primarily photographic in nature, looking at various themes that kind of repeat as we were talking about earlier with these through lines of themes. So we have this really nice moment in this particular part of the book where, and I'll just pause for just a second, we have this nice kind of through line of the horizon going into the kind of pelvic fold here, and then we have this kind of echoing of the seagull, which is really nice to kind of see all these images kind of interlap and create new kind of overlapping meanings with each other. Going on. We have several more. And I will say, as far as a kind of binding preference, the accordion fold format is so simple, but it's deceptively so. It's quite sophisticated in the ways that you can have all these different kinds of pages create kind of overlapping meanings and intertextual meanings. So we can both look at the kind of pages next to each other. We can also look at the ways that different pages overlap with each other, kind of juxtaposing. And then because she's both printed on the front and the back, we can consider how those kind of images play off the meanings of each other in order to create even more meanings. Again, we have these themes of landscape, autobiography. I'm seeing things that are, you know, a play and a repetition of horizontal, diagonal, these kinds of nice round images that intersperse throughout. And because there's 4 of them, you could also kind of, you know, just look at them in collective as well and see how they kind of create this kind of discursive frame of seasonality. Again, I just love that Amy talked about this working with what's around you, and that's so important to be thinking about as far as art making is concerned in our current context. Bee's been doing this clearly for decades, where this is a very personal look of what is around her and seeing all of these different things. So there you have it, Seasonal Turns. I'm sure Bee has much more to say about this, but I'm really glad to be able to share this work with you and be here today.
I'll just tell you one thing about it, if I have a sec.
Yes.
It was a super lucky accident, but when you open the box, which was a floppy disk box, which of course is completely obsolete at this point, if things are set in there correctly, which this was pure luck, you kind of crack into it. It makes a cracking sound. And the first image is my hand cracking open an egg.
Mm-hmm.
And so the physicality of the gesture, even of cracking open the book, and the sound are very similar, and only books can do that as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
That's why I like books.
Thank you.
Here it is on view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Seasonal Turns, and exactly what you were saying, Emily. The curators of these book objects have to pick which view we're seeing, and I think Jamie had picked this sequence and this view. Of course, they're two-sided, which is great because some of these images recur in other series in the exhibition. Landscapes of Innocence, some return trips, right, B?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a particular gallery in the exhibition where the themes of landscape merge with the theme of family and motherhood. And so there are a number of works in this area of the exhibition that could overlap and go in both of those themes. So here's the book on view. Thank you, Emily. And yeah, it's one wonderful thing that Ricker does is to make these exhibition guides to most, if not all, of Krannert Art Museum's installations. They link on our exhibition pages. So if folks are curious to read more, definitely check that out. Okay. Now I will invite, we're going to stick with the object, and we're going to talk with Caroline Silowich, who is Associate Professor in the Department of French and Italian and the Kolb Proust Librarian at the University Library, another favorite colleague. So hello, Caroline.
Good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, I'm representing the Rare Book and Manuscript Library tonight, but I want to acknowledge my colleague Anna Rodriguez, who really has been the one working with Krannert to make parts of this event happen. I wanted to mention Bee's role as a wonderful partner to the library, as an educator. As somebody mentioned, that she's a wonderful community builder. And we've been very lucky in the Rare Book Library that over the years we've hosted a number of events, workshops, and Bee was very generously participating. One of them you may have heard of was our famous Camp Cursive, which we made happen a couple of times, where we invited little children aged 7 to 10 to learn the fine art of writing in cursive. And the day-long workshop also included not just learning to write your letters, but other activities, and we helped participate in teaching little children how to build their first little book, their first little notebook, in which they could learn to write their new learned letters. We also led a paste paper workshop for us once, and I will proudly show that I have my one paste paper sample from that day that I still very proudly display in my office. Thank you, Bee, for that lesson. But one thing that we've been collecting Bee's works as well in the Rare Book Library collections, but one thing, Bee very generously donated her, what we call her teaching collection, and I will share my screen for a moment so people can see. I just pulled one sample. Let's see if I can make this thing focus better. So this is one little box from the multi-box Bean et al.'s teaching collection. So this is, Bee maybe can explain better than I could. This is a huge collection of many, many samples, little models of book models, book arts that you collected throughout the years from students, other colleagues, classes. There's all these little objects. And this is a collection that is wonderful because unlike some of the objects that we show in our collections that are a little intimidating for our visitors, that people are afraid to touch because they might be fragile, they might be rare, they're works of art. This is a collection that we love to handle this way. And to let our readers, young and not so young, explore.
There may even be people tonight looking on that are going to see their own book.
That's mine.
The way I got all these books, it would be a class assignment, and I would usually participate too. We would make, if there are 12 people in the class, we would make an edition of 12 or 13 and trade, and that's how I acquired all these wonderful little book samples.
Amazing. And I know that we've had many young children come visit the library, and this is an amazing collection that really gets students going. People will just dive into these boxes and start to explore and figure out how things work. there we were.
It's kind of a fun history of technology too. You can see from the really early Xerox machines to pretty sophisticated
matrix printer.
things. Yeah.
Little.
Look how pixelated that one was. Yeah.
It's a wonderful, and then little, very interesting little book structures as well. And so this collection is available to anyone who can come to the Rare Book and Manuscript Library, you know, as soon as these strange times are over and we can reopen our doors. But there's so many of those, and we're very, very grateful to you, Bee, because this is a very useful, very well-loved collection.
I'm happy to have it have a home. That's good.
So, as far as clearly, this is the box for flip books. But there's so many of these. I discover new things every time. And I will agree with my colleague Emily that there's something sad about locking books in display cases, frozen on one opening when we could all be touching and interacting with the books.
RBML has loaned Hair Loss to the exhibition and made a special mount for it. Do you want to tell everybody about Hair Loss, Bee, and how that works?
Sure. Yeah. Are you going to be able to go back and view it, or maybe?
Yeah, I could do that.
Possibly. Yeah. I only made 4 copies of it, so this is a real special opportunity for people to see this. If you go to the library and ask to view it, there it is. It's kind of small, but
I didn't bring in a focused image.
that's okay. That's okay. I had breast cancer, and that year I taught. I kept teaching, which was a good thing because it kept me moving and gave me a goal. But I had chemo, and that meant all my hair fell out. And every month, the most that I could do was to I had a view camera that was set up, would be take 1 self-portrait a month. And I figured I would do that and document the hair, my bald stage, and then as the hair grew back. But I also wrote a little bit about it, and the fact that the hair fell out actually while I was visiting my daughter, who was a grad student in Nebraska at the time. She knew how to make paper. And I scooped a bunch of it up and I left it with her, and I said, please, honey, put this in some handmade paper for me. So it was embedded into the paper, which becomes the end sheets of the book. And then as soon as I came back from Nebraska, I had my son, Gavin, give me a buzz. So in a way, I let both of my kids kind of help me out with this balding thing. Rachel could make something out of the hair, and Gavin could help me get rid of the little remnants of the hair. It was more traumatic than I had expected, because usually my hair was very short. And that's what the book is about. It's very straightforward.
And that's an instance too where the book is, all of the books in the exhibition are very object-like, but this one, because the hair is included on the 2 covers, and that's visible when you come to see it, it has all of this material resonance as an object.
Yeah. It's also bound in a brown, very soft brown leather, and this again is the tactile quality of a book. When you hold it, it's really almost like flesh. It has a very bodily feeling to it when you hold the book and look at it.
So all kinds of photographic objects in the exhibition. Caroline, did you have anything else to share, or we're good? Okay, we're good. Thank you. It's wonderful seeing broadcasting from Rare Book and Manuscript Library. It's a special place I know we'll all look forward to returning to as audience members. So now I'd like to ask Bee to read from a selection of books. Bee, will you read from the new one first, or what order?
What do you have? What do you have a picture of? Do you have anything there?
I do have.
All right, let's go in order then. I think that'd be good. I'm gonna read you something from Punch and Judy, and that's from a book called World's Mother Way. Here we go. We haven't talked about these projects yet, but for maybe the past 7 or 8 years, I've been photographing people's surnames that I find on gravestones that are nouns and verbs and adjectives. And I've got almost 7,000 of them now. And then with those names, sort of like refrigerator magnets, digitally, I write poetry. And this is from my second to last book, which is called World's Mother Way, in which I've told the stories of 3 mothers, Eve, Judy of Punch and Judy, and Hester of the Scarlet Letter. And there's a lot more detail on my website, and I know people probably want to party, so I'm not going to go into it all, but I do want to read you this section because it's a lot of fun. Punch and Judy's an awful story, I think. There's a lot of brutality, domestic violence, and people laugh at it, and that always amazed me. He's a pretty crude character, like some people we won't mention tonight too much. But I do talk about him in the next book. Pretty crude character, very, very rough. And he's left to babysit the baby, their baby, and he throws the baby into the audience and kills it. And when Judy comes back up from baking custard buns in the kitchen, she realizes the baby's gone, and she gets upset, and she starts to really rail on him. So first they just start yelling at each other, and that's what this first section is. So I'm going to read you when they start verbally abusing and then when they get physical. Okay, so this is 2 sections. All of these are last names. So I hope everybody can see the screen pretty well. Here we go. Child cast to hurling names: Sasser, Ice Queen, Bride from Hell. Judy snipes back: Ratty, dang man, boozer, loser, limp, lich, lush. Punch snooks: hooker, tart, common tramp, mange mangler. Gross man, horny creep, think, shorty. Bitter crone, too loose lady. Lame lady man, bonehead, old man oaf. Harper, carper, stiff old biddy. Daft lumpkin, little pecker, soddy rotter. Hair volley back and forth. And I wish I could hear you guys laughing. That always adds to the reading, but this is pretty weird stuff, some of these names. Then, both mates begin gory hijinks in earnest. Folks cheer, bravo, attaway. Mama's baton bats merryman, batting old father below belt. Poke, prod, plonk, pound. Punches bigger.
I'm okay.
What? Okay, here. Punches bigger staff, enters duel. Bang, bash, bust, yow. Flatten, gash, gouge. Hack, smack, whack, ow. Rock and sock, knock, shock, pow. Striker struck, final blow to brain. Judy staggers down, dies. Ho ho, ha ha ha's. Everyone in the audience laughs when Judy is killed. So anyway, that's a sample of World's Mother Way. And then the other book, got a slide of that?
Oh, I do.
Okay. Is coming up here. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is it. Okay. It took me a while after World's Mother Way. Usually I do one of these projects about 1 a year, and I have to think a while till I come up with a concept, because the concept to me has to have some conceptual reason to be written in graves and gravestones. This one is obvious. This is about Corona and death and all of that. But the one before, World's Mother Way, points out patriarchal naming, which I'm very interested in names and how hard it is to write women's lives when almost all the names have to do with men's jobs, and you know, you're named after your father and so forth. So, and you'd get that if you kind of read more about the book. But this is the history of the COVID epidemic. And I started writing it even before I don't know what month, I think it was July. And I determined I would keep at it until August and then quit. I couldn't keep after it. But I read a lot about the events, did some research, started to pull my names together and so forth. And I had all these different months as people's last names up certainly through August. I could have kept going, but I couldn't stand it anymore. So I'm going to read you April, the month of April. And the book is an accordion. I believe someone else might have pictures of it, but at any rate, it's a...
Caroline has it. She's holding it.
It's okay. It's an accordion. Yeah, hold it up, Caroline, if people see you. Yeah. So it's an 8-sided accordion that starts in December, actually, with the first arrival in China. And now this is the month of April, okay? April brings Corona to million world members. Worst weekly job loss. In all-cap tweet, Trump stokes right-wing tribe to battle stay-in-place laws. Red cappers swarm in town center. Venter, heckler, point fingers, bump knuckles, leveling high fives. During news brief, President favors bleach sips, hopes to treat virus with sunshine. News anchors wince. Blasé remarks stuns learned doctor, marks new low. Young flood Florida beach, surf, grill wieners, share drinks with pals. Rash Parsons offers Sunday sermons. Churchgoers link arms. Sick singer lofts spittle showers over pew. Moist sprinkle harms prim widows. Elder pines to take deep nap. Constant strain mars her shallow sleep. That's me, I'm that elder. Single mamas do double duty, fitting in reading to child with screen times. Strange leisure times see neighbors converse, missing normal laughter. Lively child teeters on new rollerblades. Proud parent smiles, mulling over good enough days. Okay, so that's very autobiographical. I mean, that's what was going on in April in my yard. I saw a lot of neighbors, a lot of kids out, a lot of parents trying to keep it together. And of course it continues in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Good enough days.
On the occasion of the exhibition here at CAM, you, Liza Sylvester, our curator of academic affairs, took you and David Hayes, professor in landscape architecture, out on a walk of Mount Hope Cemetery, which is just, it's campus's, I guess it's a cemetery that's very close to Krannert Art Museum, and recorded your walk there. And so that's now available online, and it's really wonderful.
That's about graves too, but it was a one roll of film that I shot while I was a grad student in 1969, and I pulled out the proof sheet and tried to find those same graves again, and that's what David and I are doing. We're talking about trying to relocate and trace my steps. And then, as it turns out, the very last shot, which we mull over in the tape, is what looks like it's a real ruin of a mausoleum. At the highest point, the most grandiose place in the whole cemetery. And I wasn't even sure that it was the right one that I'd photographed 50 years ago. Turns out it was the founder of Mount Hope Cemetery. It was his mausoleum, and it's gone to rack and ruin. I eventually did some sleuthing and figured that out for sure. And then after you see that, which I photographed so long ago, if you make just a very short turn and go down the hill a little bit, you find the grave of Daisy Pickle. And Daisy was the sort of start of all this graveyard poetry, and that's all described in that walk that David and I do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, and that's a great example too of what I mean when I mentioned in my essay and at the very beginning that this is world-making practice. You know, we've been talking about photographic objects and the history of your work, but then also just how your work points us out into the world, takes us out on walks, thinking about the construction of your poetry and your books, which then takes us back into the gallery. So it's so fitting, you know, as an object of study for this exhibition, but also just for our university audience, much less, you know, gathering all of us here tonight to celebrate it.
I've had people say they can't walk through a graveyard without thinking about this project. Now I've kind of ruined it or changed their whole outlook on walking through a graveyard and looking at those names. I mean, they're wondrous. They're amazing. I'm still looking for them. And I can use some drones. Lionel, my husband, was joking that I should have a drone, you know, and because I'm complaining about bending and the knee bends and the walking and all that. And we were kind of laughing about it, but also a drone being a bee, it's nice to have some workers. And so occasionally I'll have somebody in another city go find a word for me and send me the file. So anybody want to do it, I'll do the research and then you go find it.
Are there any specific words you're looking for right now?
Always, always, especially adverbs. Oh my Lord, they're very hard to find. My sister Connie, she's smirking, I can see her. She joked she found the whole graveyard with all the adverbs, and I believed her. There are a few I still want.
Great.
Yeah, I want for, F-O-R. My older brother said he'd go get it for me, but he hasn't done it yet. It's a 2-hour drive. He lives out in Montana. It's kind of cold there right now.
Yeah, and I mention it just because we've got folks plugged in from all over. So
yeah, okay, all right. Well, and that's something I talk about. I think with the Walk with David, there's incredible databases now online
that's right.
It's a lot of work for me to do, but I go through them, and a lot of times I go ahead of time with a list. I know exactly what I want. In the military cemeteries, I know exactly where they are. But in regular cemeteries, I often don't. I know they're there, but I don't know where they are. Like the time I went to find Mr. Pancake, and I had to walk quite a bit, but I found him. Well, that's another whole story.
And with that, I mean, I think I'm very happy to conclude the sort of presentation portion of the Zoom opening for Bee's exhibition here at CAM, and invite folks just to open the floor. If anyone has questions about the exhibition or would like to share or chime in. And
I gotta say, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm seeing people. It's so exciting. It's really exciting to see these familiar faces. Thanks for doing this.
There are a number of former students here. Just from the registration. I know I have a good list of folks here, and also a few members of your cohort. Right, yeah.
Yeah, very exciting.
So thanks everybody for joining. I'd like to invite Marla, if Marla's here.
Is Marla my helper? Is this the Marla I'm expecting? She's got no picture, but did she ask a question? Marla, are you Marla Alvarado? Anyway, if it's that Marla, she helped me up at Rock Island.
Oh, I think you're
Hi,
muted.
Bee.
Oh, there.
Hey.
Okay, so I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty.
That's okay.
We can hear you.
Okay.
But it's good to see you.
Nice.
I'm thankful to be here. I have your tarot deck, and I was hoping I could shuffle, and you would say when or stop, and then we'll pick that card, and you can tell us a little bit about the background of that photo that you took for that particular card.
Sure, we'll see if it's a good one.
All right.
Okay, the pressure's on. Stop.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And then we'll lift it up. Let's see.
Okay, oh, that's me. Okay, you have to back off a little to get it in focus. Okay, that's the world. That's the card of the world. That's a good one because there's the 4 elements that are surrounding it. There's a man, an eagle, a lion, and a bull, and those represent actually the 4 elements. So the tarot cards I started in 1970, right out of grad school. Someone had given me a tip about this book of tarot cards. I didn't even own a deck, and I started the deck in the 4th of July, actually, 1970. But that picture was taken a few years later. It took me 5 years to do all the work, and the images were done before Photoshop. You have a digitized version. That's, I think, the 2nd version, Marla. 2nd edition. It might be the 3rd. Turn it around. Let me see what's on the back.
Third.
Your third edition, okay. Yeah. But the original was completely shot just on film and put together in a darkroom without any dream that we'd ever have digital.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Kevin, do you have a card too?
I keep my deck right by the station I'm at all day long.
You do?
Do.
That's hardcore, Kevin.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple others I can say.
Okay.
Deans need these things.
Yeah, you do.
Should I pick one? I love this idea.
Sure.
All right. I'm gonna get one. I'm gonna not
This
look
is,
at it.
this is very interesting. I had no idea.
It's a great prompt. All right. I'm not gonna look. Got.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a artist, a sculptor named Donald Drum, and that was the extent of the sculpture studio at Penland. For any of you who've been to Penland, in 1970, it was a shack. That's all it was. There was a little bit of a workspace. It had screen wire around the sides, and that was all the workspace there was. Now it's grandiose. The facilities at Penland this is in North Carolina. It's a craft school that was very, very formative for me. Anyway, I have several pictures. Look at those mutton chops on him. That dates us. That's the 70s, you know. I like the one of him is the cups. I don't know if you can pull that one. I think it's 9 or 10 of cups. There's a guy with a cup, and there's a bunch behind him on the outside window of that sculpture studio. And he made all those cups. And I tried to do that as much as possible when I was shooting. If there was a crafts person, I would use the objects that they actually made. That's it. And also he was a loudmouth. I mean, in a good way, but so as a drunken, guy that was sort of loud in the dining hall, it was a perfect portrait of Don.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I hope he's not watching. No. He'd agree with me, I think.
And as I mentioned before, but most of the deck is on view here.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
So that's, I was grateful to a student of mine who knows tarot pretty well, Ollie Greer, gave me.
And you have the first edition too.
Yeah, right. It's the Eastman Museum's deck, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to list these former students who might be here. This just to celebrate everyone. You're welcome to speak up. I'm not putting you on the spot, but just so that everybody knows who's here. And there's probably a good chance that other folks are here who I'm not aware of. So please speak up. But Rod Homer is here from Evanston. Charlie Simokaitis from Chicago. Laura Hill from Orlando, Andrea Shaker from Minneapolis, Mary Lasky from Chicago, Stephen Kamikowski from Chicago. All those folks are here, and maybe more folks too, former students.
Oh, yeah. A lot of you guys don't have pictures.
Yeah.
Or you're being coy. That's okay.
And I see Francois Deschamps is here too, whose work is now in Cran Art Museum's collection due to Bee's generosity as well, and actually on view right now.
And Francois and Roy and I were in grad school. Francois, you were, technically you were a math grad student, I think, but in photo classes with me. If he's muted at this point, but at the same time as Roy. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in math.
And Kim, there's Kim too. Hey, Kim. Kim and Francois were rascals. They were. They got away with all kinds of very interesting things. I remember Francois making was it Francois that made the photogram toast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was making fun of me.
Was he?
I made some mosograms, and so he made toastograms.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I remember that. I wondered why you got away with it, and I couldn't. I couldn't get away with doing anything, like at all weird.
I remember.
Yeah, it was tough. Yeah.
And now all the stuff you couldn't get away with is on view in the museum.
Yeah, that's true. It's karma.
Oh, great.
Can I say, as someone that's seen your show, what an archive. And to see community gather and people that you used to teach be here in spirit and like be with you, and you remember their work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What a treasure. Thank you for the work. Also, the cabinet that you made is breathtaking.
You know the story of that. Amy,
no, do tell, please tell.
The Swamp Venus box. A grad student, and Roy, you'd remember Jan Tannenbaum, probably. Henry and Jan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, Jan gave me this cabinet, and I had seen the Joseph Cornell boxes in Chicago, and so I never used it as a cabinet. I built the Swamp Venus in it. I think the date's 69 or something like that. I think that's what I dated it. And I love this thing around the country from house to house. I moved a lot when I was young and starting out. You take whatever teaching job you could get, and then you take the next one up, and that's how you got promoted, you know. But finally, when I moved from Rochester to Philadelphia, it got lost on the moving van. And I went all the way out to California. And on the inventory, they said, badly scratched cabinet, badly worn, badly scratched cabinet. And I thought I'd never see that thing again. But about 3 months later, it turned up, and I did. And now it's at the museum, which is pretty cool.
Wow. And
but
so
it was a badly scratched cabinet.
You were an MFA student here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. I'm in my 3rd year here, so it's nice to see your legacy be in that museum.
Thanks.
And so much of what was sort of happening at that time, like I think about how crazy it must have been to have Peter Bunel come through town in 1970, MoMA photo curator.
Yeah.
He got the tip to come see your work. He was coming here to see you, but being in the final year of your MFA, having a curator from MoMA show up. And I keep thinking about the photographic object and how many objects are in the exhibition, even as it's an exhibition of photography. It still resonates.
That was pretty miraculous. In February of 1970, I had driven over to Indianapolis because there was a conference, and I didn't know what this conference was, but it became eventually the Society for Photographic Education. And I went specifically to see my main mentor, and I'll give a shout out to Robert Fichter. I do that any chance I get. But Robert was going to be there, so I drove over, saw Robert, and showed him slides. And in those days, people would hold up slides and look at them and pass them around. And so he passed my slides around. And at some point, maybe a month or so later, maybe not even that much longer, I come home from the grad studio. And in those days, you actually checked your mailbox, you got mail. And I opened the mailbox, and there was a letter from the Museum of Modern Art. And I thought it was a book club thing, and I almost threw it out, but I thought, oh, whatever. I opened it, and it was a letter to me from the curator at MoMA, wanting to know more about my sculptural photographic work. And I mean, I thought I had it made at that point. That I did. I mean, it was an incredible break. But he flew out. He flew out to Little Willard Airport, which was a tiny little airport at the time, and got off the plane with his little bow tie and his white shirt. And I took him to the grad studio, and we were careful not to get paint on him. And he told me to keep it very quiet, because he didn't want everyone to know he was in town, because he didn't want to visit everybody. He just wanted to see me. And I said, oh yeah, I won't tell anyone. But of course, everyone told. I mean, how often do you have a curator from MoMA come to your studio? It was pretty cool. So he picked a couple pieces.
I remember that day.
Do you remember it?
I remember well. We were all very impressed.
Yeah.
And
I was too. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
I must admit, we couldn't believe it at the time. And the fact that he was coming out just to see you as well.
I know.
You reminded me of his bow tie.
Yeah,
Many years now. I wore bow ties after that. That was the
you remember?
influence.
I think she was the cohort before you, Roy. There was a student named Myra Cantor.
Oh, I remember her. Yes.
Oh, you
Yeah.
remember her? I think she stayed on to teach a year or so afterwards. But she was very flamboyant, a lot of gestures, a lot of wild gestures, and some other very well-dressed man came, like a curator or a critic or someone, came to critique work, and Myra's gesturing, and she somehow managed to get a paintbrush of alizarin crimson up the guy's sleeve, and like right straight up his white shirt sleeve, and he went out of there and looked like he was bleeding. But
Amy,
that was Myra.
Amy will be, and any chance is in the show that's example of this photographic sculpture?
Oh yes,
What?
throughout, but the two pieces that were included in that 1970 show are not in the exhibition, but there is, B, do you want to talk about the work that is in that first gallery?
From the photo and the sculpture show?
It wasn't in that show, but it did go to California recently for when it was revisited, that show.
Okay, are we talking about the Beach and Constellation?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. There were two pieces that were shown at MoMA, and they're both in collections, in private collections, and so we couldn't pull those back out. Actually, Peter Bonnell bought one of the two pieces, and the other one I gave to a colleague, William Larson, who passed away not too long ago, but he hired me to teach at Tyler School of Art, and that was also an incredible break for me, and I was very grateful. And he's quite a collector. He was quite a collector. So when I left Philadelphia to return to Rochester in 74 or something, I gave Bill that piece, and he had so much art that he collected, and he also married a couple times. We couldn't find it. I don't know what became of that piece. Every now and then you just lose track. I mean, I know he had it. He remembers it, but we couldn't find it. So there's no way we could have had it borrowed. There's a similar piece, but it's in the Portland Museum of Art. So when they were going to remount the show, we had to pick a couple of similar aged pieces to put in that show that was no longer called Photography and the Sculpture. It was called The Photographic Object, I believe. And that was marking some kind of major anniversary of that show, which opened in May of 1970.
Mm-hmm. But I'd say, yeah, there are lots of good examples in the show, Beach and Constellations being one. It's mounted right next to the Skirted Garden, but also Sister in the Garden with Bird Bath, just many instances of printing on linen and muslin.
Yeah, fabric, printing on fabric using photo linen. The photo linen piece, there's the one called St. Croix or something, or whatever, the one.
And Jamie, Unicorn Tapestry as well. It's really beautiful. So they're in there, Ian, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of sewn stuff.
Yeah. We're coming up on the conclusion of our Zoom opening and party, but what should we do to sign off?
I want screenshots of
all. Oh yeah, okay.
So I'm going to do a screenshot here. This cohort, can we, like, that's page 1, I think.
Also do some reactions.
Page 2. Lots of names, so I'll know you were here. I just, maybe, wave, yay, good, very good. I may not. Guido! Oh my God. I'm just catching names here, like out of the corner of my eye. Okay, 4. I hope I get a list.
Yes.
Of all these people. All right. Very good.
Yeah, what hasn't come up tonight is what a great documentarian and archivist of your work you have been.
Yeah.
And so, I can mention any city and B can tell me who she knows in the city. And so, you asking for a list of who attended is
yeah. Well, I tell you, there too, I really credit Robert Fichter. When I first started, my first photo class was with him at the University of Florida in the fall of '69. And he said, start making contact sheets, keeping the film on the contact sheet, start numbering the roll of film, write the date and, you know, some stuff about it. Do it now, you won't regret it.
Mm-hmm.
It would be completely out of control at this point. I mean, even a few years into it, if I hadn't done that. Now, doing the inventory of my work came along a little later, but I started to realize pretty early on that I needed us to be systematic about it. You guys put me through a lot of brain, you know, like it was really hard. Like, when did you do this? And what was that? And, you know, I could usually come up with the answer given a little lead time.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of that's because of inventory systems that I established for myself.
And now that it's all digitized, yeah, Jamie said it made curating easy. Yeah, now that it's all digitized, it's easy to search. You know, I'll think of a title and just, you know.
That's true. Alphabetical search or search terms and stuff like that. Yeah,
no, it's incredible. But
easier and harder. You know, I think we're also with digital photography. You take way too many shots, and so there's going to be an awful lot of stuff that people are going to have to store and try to sort through. And I'm pretty harsh. I edit pretty hard and throw out an awful lot of stuff right off the bat to keep trying to keep it,
yeah.
Except for gravestones.
Is there anyone else tonight who we didn't get to? Or I'm gonna give everybody an opportunity.
Okay, Clint, how you doing?
But I think we'll just thank you for your tremendous
it's great to see you.
work.
It's been a while.
Hey, I have.
Andrea.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have.
I work across the street from a graveyard, so.
Oh, tell me which one, Clint. You email me, let me know. Okay, we got to beat the cold weather though. You know, if I'm looking for something. Unless you live in the South somewhere. I'm not driving anywhere.
For some reason, I'm not hearing you.
Yeah.
Oh, we can hear you, Clint, but.
Yeah, no, I heard you. Yeah.
He's not hearing us.
Oh.
So just to remind folks, the museum is open until 7 o'clock tonight. If you're here locally in Champaign-Urbana, come on by with your mask and see the show. The museum is closing. We're closed tomorrow. Per the governor and the state mandate to help mitigate the spread of COVID-19. The show is open through March 6th, and so let's all do our part and remain optimistic that we'll all be able to gather separately here in the show before March 6th, and then in person next year to honor Bee in person for having been awarded the Distinguished Alumni Award in the School of Art and Design with a lecture. And to gather in person would just be the perfect way to celebrate this year, which coincided with your touring retrospective. So I'm just really glad to be able to gather by Zoom and to hear everyone's stories and see objects and collections and share with you, Bee. So thank you.
Oh, it was great.
Thank you for hosting this wonderful show. And Amy, thank you for your wonderful essay, and Jamie for all the hard work. Bee, of course, for your incredible generosity and time. It's a beautiful show, and I hope everybody can come and see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's great meeting everybody. And,
good to see you, Roy.
No, we were supposed to be over in Canada and the States at this time. That was a grand plan for both of us to come over. And of course, it's not been possible, has it? But, you know, maybe before March, things might change, but let's hope for the best.
Come to the reunion next August or September or whenever we do it. If possible.
Well, it's probably going to be that time before all these restrictions are lifted.
That's what I mean. That's our goal, is to maybe aim for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we've got loads and gorgeous stuff from B in the collection. So we'll be planning to get some stuff back out for them.
We'll haul some stuff out.
Okay. Good to see you all. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, and take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm hanging in to the very last second here, watching these names pop out.
Good strategy.
Bye-bye, Sissy.
Bye, Mary.
Bye, Bee.
Bye.
Love
Bye.
you.
Bye, Bee.
Bye. Lots of first names here, so I don't know who they are, but
Good to see you, Bee.
good.
That Lionel character.
Mary, hey, we'll have another reunion one of these days.
In person, I hope.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Laura.
Take care. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. All right. Excellent.